Hi everyone, my name is Traysi Benjamin-Matthew, and today we're talking about a new performance poetry piece by Leeza Awojobi, which is the Sputnik Patron scheme is currently helping to fund. So, hi Leeza, why don't you introduce yourself and your background as an artist?
Sure. Hi. Thanks, Tracy. Hi, everyone. My name is Leeza Awojobi, and I'm a Bristol-based poet and producer. I've been doing performance poetry for about 4.5 years now. And yeah, I love to perform. Done a bit of work with text as well, but I really like to summarize my poetry with the themes, words, eyes, and oath. So eyes refer to observation, perception, and intent,
Mm.
and an oath is a testimony of truth or a solemn promise. And these two ideas I regularly go back to in my practice, and I feel like they really ground my work.
It's very nice having that type of grounding for what you do, isn't it? It kind of keeps you more focused, I
Yeah.
suppose, as well. No, it's brilliant. So tell us about the piece that Sputnik is currently funding.
Yeah. So thanks to you guys, I get to develop this idea that has been probably about a year and a half in the making. It's called The Frayed Elephant,
Mm.
and it's a poetry audio and storytelling piece which features materials. So currently, I imagine it to be very much a solitary experience where people listen to the poetry and storytelling pieces via headphones, and they at the same time get to play with, interact, and respond to materials.
Now, the frayed elephant. Why the frayed elephant? Why that title? What does it mean?
Mm, yeah, so that title basically comes from a parable
Mm.
that I came across a few years ago called The Blind Men and the Elephant.
Mm.
And it's the story of six blind men who are all feeling on different parts of the elephant, and they're
Mm.
saying, one is feeling the trunk, and they're saying, "Oh, an elephant is like a snake." Another
Mm.
feels the leg, and they say that no, an elephant is like a tree because it feels really rough and like bark.
Mm.
Um, and the moral of the story is that because we have different, because we're coming from different perspectives,
Mm.
we shouldn't judge each other on like claims to truth. And ultimately, there's no objective truth. We just all come at it from our own perspective. So it
Mm.
comes from that. And the frayed elephant um, came out of two places. One, it came out of a critique that I heard of that story of, okay, if there is no absolute truth, if it's all just for
Mm.
grabs, who's the person who is looking into the frame? Like, who's the
Mm.
person who claims to see the whole picture and, um, yeah, essentially has the outside objective knowledge to be able to
Yes.
say everyone's blind.
Yeah.
And that provocation stayed with me. I think like, the moral of the story is a good one. We need to
Mm.
strive to tolerance and not allow our our sort of angle to kind of produce hate and divide. But at the same
Mm.
time, how do we exist and coexist in a society um, without any kind of anchoring? So yeah, those are the kinds of themes
Mm.
that it
Mm.
touches.
It sounds really interesting, and just going back to the whole kind of participation element of your poetry and what you're expanding and this new thing you're doing. Do you feel there are any limitations in the usual performance dynamic between artist and audience?
Mm, yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I wouldn't say there are necessarily limitations. I wouldn't
Yeah.
frame it in that way. I think there are just different ways of viewing performance, and
Mm.
I want to enable whoever I engage with, in this piece at least, to engage more actively. I wouldn't say that the usual way is limiting. Like there's so much we can do in that kind of traditional, like I guess like unidirectional way of storytelling that we're used to. But this is just a different way of doing it.
Yeah, no, it sounds really amazing. And can you tell us, I know, why you feel connected to the material personally, and why it's important to make this work?
I guess this grew out of so yeah, partly it grew out of that parable, but it also came out of my relationship with social media. Now gradually over the years I have just taken myself off of various platforms. I no longer have Facebook, LinkedIn, I no longer have Twitter, or X as it's called now. And I've always had a very back and forth relationship with social media. I've never found that I've never been able to be fully at home there. Yeah, it wasn't an environment that I felt like I could really thrive in. If I wanted to engage with it properly and authentically. So yeah.
Thank you. It's interesting how, because I know social media can have its pros and cons, can't it, as well. So it's great that you've kind of taken that, kind of realize, you kind of recognize actually it's not for you, but there's other things that kind of birthed from the fact that you're not involved in it as much. Other things are birthing in your practice, which is really interesting. So any top tips you have for those who are starting to do poetry?
Definitely write. Like sometimes it comes out so clunky and it's not flowing, it's not sitting well the way you want to, but just like having that regular time of writing. I'd say like, maybe start like with twice a week. Just have like a regular time where you're writing twice a week. At various times I've written every day. I don't do that all the time, and I don't really, for some people I know that that's their thing, they have to write every day, but I don't put that pressure on myself. But I do write regularly, and if I feel like I'm getting myself in a rut, or if I feel like I'm kind of stuck, I do make an effort to not stay there. So
and how do you do that? How do you not stay in that space of being unable to write? What do you do?
That is a good one. I think, to be honest, my faith, as a Christian, like helps a lot. We're whole people, and I think the way society is set up and the way work can be set up sometimes is that we actually cut ourselves off from different parts of ourselves. So depending in like what sector you work in, it's like you're a professional here, and like kind of showing one side of yourself, but actually we're whole people. And so if I'm not writing, then there's usually something deeper going on. Like maybe I'm stuck because I feel overwhelmed, and I feel like, just the pressure of trying to do things as a poet, as an artist, is just too much. Maybe I'm looking at my work and I'm like, this is rubbish. But it's like, okay, it might be, it might not be, it might not be. But whether it's rubbish or not, who am I actually outside of my work? And I think as artists, because we're like pouring out like ourselves, we can like get so wrapped up in our practice, and like it can be where our identity comes from and where our identity is rooted. But actually I'm trying to be quite careful about that, in that whilst poetry is always going to come from inside me, it can never, whether I do amazing work or not, that can never be ultimately defines me, or that I ultimately live for.
With poetry, it can be very emotionally draining sometimes. We pour in a lot of you into that piece, which can be quite overwhelming. And you need those pause moments, isn't it? So I know, like, obviously you've been writing poetry for a while. Can you tell me a bit more about the time when you kind of felt that actually I am a poet? That kind of where you kind of identified to being a poet and understanding your writing style or the way you do all your work in practice. That light
Yeah,
bulb moment,
that's a
I am
really
a poet. Is
good.
sorry.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think, it's kind of difficult to answer that because I definitely had a moment where I was like, okay, right, I'm gonna pursue this professionally. But
Yeah.
I've been writing since I was a kid. But I think that moment where I was just like, okay, I'm going to pursue this professionally, um, came about actually through the mentorship I received when I did a Christian internship.
Mm,
I had the
mm,
privilege of being mentored by artists, Cully and Ali from Morphe Arts. Shout out to them.
mm,
It wasn't something that I had um, been encouraged to do or had really seen other people in my sphere do. So
mm.
I was just really scared. But with their encouragement, and then with the encouragement from another Bristol-based poet,
Yeah.
they helped me that no, you can do this. Like this is a thing. This is
Yeah.
legitimate. Like
It's okay.
yeah, yeah. People
Yeah.
do see the value of poetry and engaging with people culturally. So yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's probably another tip is kind of surrounding yourself by other like-minded people who can kind of mentor and guide you along that poetry journey, isn't it?
yes.
That
Yeah.
as
Yeah. Yeah.
well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Lisa. So tell me what's next in your world? What's happening or what things are you working on in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's next is this really.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to returning to my ideas and like thinking, okay, who do I know who I can potentially collaborate with,
Yeah.
or can I ask for help in this area? Because I want it to be an audio piece which may or may not feature music. Um,
Mhm.
and I know nothing about like music, sort of like the technicality of like
Yeah.
music, art production in that sense. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thanks, Tracy.
yeah, if you'd like to support more artists like Lisa, why not become a Sputnik patron? All of our details are in the link below. Thank you very much.